The American heartland is often described as the breadbasket of the world. It's a place of wholesome values, hard work, and endless horizons. But there is a specific kind of isolation that only a farmer truly understands. When the sun dips below those horizons in places like Buckingham, Iowa, or the Ozark foothills of Arkansas, that endless horizon transforms into a wall of impenetrable black. The corn grows tall, sometimes 8 or 9 feet high, creating a natural, rustling labyrinth that surrounds your home. You're miles from the nearest siren, and your only neighbors are separated by half a mile of dark, tilled soil. Out here, you learn to trust your gut. Because when a knock comes at 11 at night, or a strange whistle carries over the stalks, it isn't a friend. These are 3 true accounts of when the isolation of the farm life turned into a nightmare. Buckingham, Iowa is the kind of place where you know the history of every tractor on the road and the lineage of every family for 3 generations. My wife Cheryl and I have spent our entire lives in this rhythm. We grow corn, we watch the seasons, and we enjoy the silence. Our closest neighbors, George and Kenny, are half a mile out in opposite directions. That's close by Iowa standards. It means you can see their porch lights on a clear night, but you can't hear them scream. It was a Saturday in August 2018. The air was heavy with that thick pre-storm humidity that makes the corn grow an inch overnight. We'd had George and his wife over for board games, the kind of night that involves a bit too much whiskey and a lot of loud laughing over a kitchen table. They headed out around 11 p.m. It's a 30-second straight shot to their place, so we didn't think twice about them getting home safe. Cheryl and I poured 2 glasses of wine and collapsed onto the couch to finish a movie. We were in that hazy, comfortable state of being half drunk and half asleep, the rain starting to tap rhythmically against the glass. Then, the silence of the house was shattered. 3 slow, heavy knocks on the front door. I froze. In 20 years, nobody had ever knocked on our door after 10. I muted the TV. The hum of the refrigerator felt suddenly deafening. Then, a voice, muffled, high-pitched, and frantic. "We need help." Cheryl gripped my arm so hard I felt her nails. Her eyes were wide, the wine haze completely evaporated. I went to stand up, but she pulled me back, shaking her head. "Don't open it," she breathed. "Just don't." I walked to the door, keeping the chain on. I didn't turn on the porch light. "Who is it?" I called out. "Oh, thank God," the voice replied. "Can you open up? We're lost." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. People don't get lost on a straight-line country road in Buckingham. "Who is we?" I asked. "My wife and I," the man said. Something was fundamentally wrong. The cadence of his speech was off. It felt rehearsed. I took a breath. "Can your wife say something?" Silence. 5 seconds passed. Then 10. The rain picked up, drumming on the roof. I asked again, louder this time. "Did you hear me? Let me hear her voice." "Yeah, but she's not next to me right now," the man replied. His voice shifted. It dropped the frantic tone and sounded strange, like a man trying to reach a falsetto and failing. I actually let out a short, nervous laugh. I thought, "George, you drunk idiot?" George was a notorious prankster. I figured he'd walked back over just to mess with us. I said, "George, is that you, man?" The voice changed instantly. It dropped into a deeper, flatter, completely different tone. "Yeah." Relief washed over me for a split second, but that farm brain, that instinct for survival, kicked in. If George was lost, why was he on my porch? He lives 30 seconds away. I decided to test him. "Prove it. What's your wife's name?" There was a long, agonizing pause. Then, a completely different voice, cold, unfamiliar, and predatory, replied from the other side of the wood. "That's a trick question." My heart didn't just drop, it went cold. I backed away from the door and grabbed my phone to call the real George. He picked up on the 3rd ring, sounding tired and very much in his own bed. "George, are you at my front door right now?" I whispered. "No," he said, his voice sharpening with instant concern. "Why? What's going on? Someone's at the door. They're trying to trick me into opening it. They're pretending to be you. I'm coming over. Sit tight, George said. While I waited, the knocking started again. Not polite knocks, pounding. I grabbed my shotgun from the closet, racked a shell into the chamber, and screamed, "I have a shotgun leveled at this door. If you don't leave now, I'm firing." The voice came back, calm as could be. "We're just trying to use a phone. That's all we need." Cheryl was on the phone with 911, but out here, help is a 20-minute drive on a good day. Then we heard the sound that truly terrified us. Footsteps on the wooden deck. Not one person, two, maybe three. They weren't at the door anymore. They were moving around the wraparound porch. They stopped at the kitchen window, the one where the blinds were closed. We heard the distinct click of someone trying to slide the window lock. Cheryl screamed. I ran to the window and hammered on the glass, screaming at the top of my lungs for them to get the hell out of there. Suddenly, headlights cut through the rainy dark. A truck roared into the gravel driveway. It was George. By the time I let him in, his own shotgun leveled at the darkness, the porch was empty. The police did a sweep of the property, but the rain had washed away any clear footprints. They found nothing, but they gave us a piece of advice we took to heart. Install cameras. Everywhere. To this day, I don't know who was on that porch, but I do know this. They knew George's name. They knew we were home. And they were waiting for that door to click open. I was 20 years old in the summer of 2018, and I thought I was the luckiest kid in the world. My grandparents were heading to the city for a week and offered to pay me a few $100 to watch the farm. It was easy work. Feed the cows, check the fences, and enjoy the peace. By the last night, however, that peace felt more like pressure. There's a certain weight to the silence on a farm when you're the only soul for miles. I was in the living room, the TV providing a flickering blue light, when I heard the bass line break. On a farm, you learn the normal sounds, the wind, the insects, the occasional low of a cow, but around midnight, every single head of cattle on the property began mooing at once. It wasn't the sound of hunger. It was a chorus of pure, unadulterated distress. I stood up, my heart racing. Something had to have startled them. A coyote? A stray dog? Being the only one there, it was my job to fix it. I grabbed my coat and headed for the closet. But just as my hand touched the doorknob to go outside, a sound ripped through the air that froze the marrow in my bones. It was a high-pitched guttural scream. It came from a cow, but it sounded almost human in its agony. I didn't go outside, not yet. I ran upstairs to my grandpa's room. I knew he kept a hunting rifle under the bed. I loaded it with trembling fingers, my breath coming in short, jagged gasps. Only then did I step out into the night. The cows wouldn't stop. The noise was deafening. I ran to the barn, swinging the heavy doors open. Everything looked normal at first glance, until I walked down to the end of the stalls. One cow was missing. The lead steer. He hadn't broken out. His lead had been cleanly unlatched. Then I heard it. A faint, high-pitched moo coming from deep within the cornfield, and beneath that sound, people talking. Low, rhythmic murmuring. I'd had enough. I stepped out of the barn and fired 2 rounds into the black sky. Bang, bang. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. The cows went dead quiet. The wind seemed to stop. Then I heard the rustle. Footsteps. Lots of them. Now looking back, I should have gone inside and locked the doors, but adrenaline is a hell of a drug, and I was protecting my family's livelihood. I pushed into the corn rows. The stalks were 7 feet high, scratching at my face like skeletal fingers. I stopped. 10 feet ahead, standing in the middle of a row, was a figure. He was dressed in head-to-toe black. He didn't have a flashlight. He was just standing there. "Get out of my field!" I screamed, leveling the rifle. "I'm not bluffing! Get out!" He didn't move. He didn't flinch. I fired another round into the air, the flash momentarily blinding me. When my vision cleared, he was still there, but now he was walking toward me. His arms were held slightly out to his sides, his palms up, like he was inviting me to shoot him. That's when the moonlight shifted, and I realized with a jolt of pure terror that I was surrounded. To my left, 2 more. To my right, 3. At least 7 people I could see, all in dark clothing. And they were all wearing masks. Not store-bought Halloween masks. These were pale, elongated things that looked like bone or dried skin. They didn't attack. They didn't speak. They began to chant. It wasn't English. It was a rhythmic, melodic drone that sounded like a song from a nightmare. I realized then that I wasn't dealing with thieves. This was a ritual, and I was the only witness. I didn't wait to see what the climax of the song was. I turned and bolted. I ran blindly through the corn, the leaves slicing my skin. I reached a clearing near the farmhouse and fired my remaining 6 rounds back into the field. I heard the frantic rustling of people scattering in the opposite direction. I'd finally scared them. I ran for the porch, but I stopped dead when I saw what they'd left for me on the path. In the center of the dirt, surrounded by a perfect circle of black candles that were still flickering in the breeze, sat the severed head of the missing steer. I didn't just call the police. I called my parents and told them I was never coming back to that farm alone. The police found the candles and the remains, but the people in black were gone. They'd vanished into the thousands of acres of Iowa corn like they'd never been there at all. My name is Howard. I'm 25, and I've lived in rural Arkansas my entire life. My parents have this dream of me taking over the family farm when they retire. I'm the oldest, the only son, the heir to the dirt. But after what happened last July, I'm looking for any excuse to move to the city. It was a Tuesday night. My parents were away on a trip, leaving me in charge of my 2 younger sisters, Crystal and Morgan. We were just hanging out in the living room, the air conditioner humming, trying to ignore the oppressive summer heat. One thing you have to understand about farm life is that predators aren't always 4-legged. We've had people try to steal equipment or siphon diesel before. We keep guns in the house because out here, the police are a suggestion, not a solution. Around 10 p.m., our 2 dogs, usually the laziest labs you've ever met, started losing their minds in the backyard. It wasn't a "there's a squirrel" bark. It was deep, aggressive, and frightened. I went out to the yard to quiet them down. They were both staring at the edge of the cornfield, their hackles raised. I yelled at them to shut up and they obeyed, but they didn't stop growling. I stepped toward the crops, listening. And then I heard it. A whistle. It wasn't a bird. It was a human whistling a slow, melodic, and incredibly eerie tune. It sounded like someone strolling through a park on a Sunday afternoon, but it was coming from the pitch-black heart of a cornfield at 10 at night. My sisters came to the door asking what was wrong. I told them someone was out there. I went inside, grabbed my dad's handgun, and stepped back onto the porch. My adrenaline was spiking. I wanted to be the man of the house, so I fired a warning shot into the air. The sound echoed off the trees, silencing the insects. "Get off our land," I screamed. "I have a gun, and I will use it." I felt a surge of power. I brought the dogs inside, locked the doors, and told my sisters to go to their rooms. We all figured that would be the end of it. Nobody hangs around after a gun goes off. I went to my room, kept the window cracked for the breeze, and tried to distract myself with a movie on my laptop. I was just starting to relax when the whistle returned. It was closer now, right outside my window. I crept to the glass and looked down. My heart skipped a beat. A man was standing in the grass, not 20 feet from the house. He wasn't hiding. He was just walking slowly, his hands in his pockets, whistling that same damn tune. Then, like he had some kind of 6th sense, he stopped. He slowly tilted his head back and looked directly up at my window. Even in the dark, I could see the moonlight reflecting off his eyes. He didn't look scared. He looked amused. He just kept whistling, staring right through me. The arrogance of it was what broke me. He knew I had a gun. He knew I was watching. He didn't care. I grabbed the handgun off my bed, shoved the screen out of the way, and aimed at the dirt about 3 feet in front of him. I pulled the trigger. Crack. The dirt kicked up right in his path. The whistling stopped instantly. For a second, he just stood there, staring at the spot where the bullet hit. Then, without a word or a scream, he turned and melted back into the corn like a shadow. I stayed awake until the sun came up. We never found out who he was. Maybe it was a local kid with a death wish, or maybe it was someone much more dangerous. But now, every time I'm in a quiet place and I hear someone start to whistle a tune, my skin crawls. I realized that night that all that separates us from the people in the dark is a wooden door and a bit of luck. The farm is a place of peace, but it is also a place where you are truly, fundamentally on your own. Whether it's an imposter at the door, a ritual in the corn, or a whistler in the night, the lesson remains the same. Out here, the fences aren't just for keeping the cattle in. They are a thin, fragile line between you and the things that wander the dark. Stay safe out there. And if you hear a knock tonight, maybe check the cameras before you answer.